Stories and condos with the most fertile comic minds of the day. Lenny was a great audience for them. He laughed heartily at other people's stuff, which was pretty unusual in that business. He was kind, sincere, and well-liked. He made a respectable living, but the big money and fame eluded him. It wasn't from lack of talent, just a lack of trying. He was a bit complacent and accepting of his level. Rather than being hungry and driven, he was happy and satisfied. He was young and single, so why not? There were two things that set Lenny apart from the crowd. For one, he understood the Tao of humor. He had the ability to construct a joke as close to perfect as possible. He could also impersonate almost anyone, dead on. He'd call people and have entire conversations as their manager, a club owner, and he wouldn't get found out. He could have been a staple on After Midnight Live, and he should have been. But why try when you can hang out and party after your set instead of running to 3 other clubs to work some more? He just didn't want it badly enough. Or maybe the Mary Jane numbed his ambition. In spite of it all, Lenny and I were doing pretty well financially. Combined, even better. We afforded ourselves a good life, especially since most of the luxuries were provided for us gratis. The weekends we spent away in swanky hotels were high points. The comedy clubs picked up the tab. There were a few dives, but we had fun in them too. Lenny typically had gigs in the tri-state area, within a few hours' drive from the city. Usually hungover and worn out from my Thursday nights, we'd leave town early Friday, stop midpoint, have some food, and talk through the night before in detail. After checking in, Lenny would shower and prepare for his first show. Usually we'd eat at the club in between and hang out with the other acts afterwards. If they smoked, we stayed. Otherwise, we didn't last too long. Booze just didn't do it for me. I needed pop to feel right. And who needed the extra calories? Saturdays, we'd sleep late and go out for breakfast, something we'd never do in the city. We'd go to IHOP where we'd indulge in road food, meals we wouldn't think of eating in real life. We spent the afternoon sightseeing, window shopping, or both. Sometimes we'd hit a mall. Great fun for Manhattanites. After a late lunch, we'd head back to the hotel for showers and then do the night routine all over again. On Sundays, after another forbidden late breakfast, we'd hit the road, often stopping along the way, getting high, and taking our time to return to the real world. There's something very romantic about traveling in hotel rooms. On the road, we could leave the world behind as we embarked on our journey. Even when returning to a familiar haunt, there was still an air of adventure and mystery to each trip. Added to that was the buzz of seeing Lenny, gussied up in his stage clothes, tall, handsome as hell under the lights, commanding the attention of hundreds of admirers, hanging on his every word. I could see the desire in other women as they came up to meet him after the show. There's nothing sexier than a smart, funny man, except a smart, funny man that's wanted by others. I was madly in love with my best friend. We talked about everything all the time. I kept no secrets, and I assumed the same of him. With Eddie, I had purged my past, learning the hard way that was not a wise move. As sympathetic as he would pretend to be, initially, usually post-coitus, once we got into the fight mode, he would fling it all back in my face. My teenage abortion became calculated homicide. My previous marriage was viewed as manipulative Hebraic abuse, mine, of poor innocent Frank. My attempt at stand-up was seen as pathetic ramblings of a needy Jap. Lenny was different. He didn't judge. He listened. He empathized. He accepted. For the first time in my life, I was unconditionally loved. No matter what I told him, or what he saw for himself, my actions always betrayed my words. The true monster lurked just beneath the surface. He still wanted me and treated me with respect. He seemed amused by my compulsions and intrigued by my obsessions. The psychics had promised, and he'd been delivered. The best of times, there was plenty of hope and dope. Our careers were on the rise, but the scene was changing. Suddenly stand-up was ubiquitous, available on 100+ comedy channels. You couldn't turn on your television without seeing a brick wall and a guy telling recycled jokes. Fewer and fewer people were willing to pay $100 for a night out on the town. Lenny was still working steadily, but he often had to scramble, not knowing until the last minute where he'd be appearing that weekend. Len's manager, Sal Fink, was a well-dressed, middle-aged schmoozer who looked and sounded like he just stepped off a movie lot. a walking cliche, from his onyx and gold pinky ring to his textured black nylon knee socks. I liked him, a lot, and I think he felt likewise, kind of. Despite our mutual affection, I drove him crazy, as I filled Lenny's head with grand dreams that Sol wasn't sure how to actualize. He wanted me to stop, to let him run the show. I was not to be deterred. Knowing that Lenny was capable of great things. Not only did he possess extraordinary talent, he had incredible fortitude and perseverance. All he needed was a little push. No longer managing Eddie's band, that ended when the romance did, I was putting increased energy into Lenny's career, which was not sitting so well with Sol. The fickle music scene, where venues stayed hot for seconds it seemed, was keeping me jumping. I club hopped a lot the next year. Thursdays were my constant, until they weren't, becoming Wednesdays for a short while. I was sure that would be the end of me. But I survived, finally setting in on the Upper East Side at a place I hoped would be my home for the long haul. Blue Room, so named after its owner's unforgettable azure eyes. I went back to being a full-time in-house publicist, booker, and promoter, and reclaimed Thursdays. Faye, my therapist, says that when one partner drops the ball, the other one picks it up. That sure was true for Lenny and me. It seemed that just when I was losing a venue, he was scoring a huge gig. I'm not sure if it worked so much the other way around, but I comforted myself, hoping that I made up for it in other ways. My life had always been steeped in high drama. If there wasn't tumult, I created some. Attracted to the crazy life, I instigated the mess. Lenny and I had plenty of solace, but we also had each other. No matter what was going on with our careers, life was good. He gifted me with stability, a treasure I'd never known. What the fuck was I going to do with that? Thanks.